So in the Bible, just to sum up real quick. In the Bible, Jacob had 12 sons. Joseph was sold into slavery in Egypt. Joseph saved the family as well as Egypt and much of the known world from starvation. He was brought out of the prison. He interpreted Pharaoh's dream. He set in order during the years of plenty the system that piled up food. And on the other end, he fed people and supplied the world of his day with food, and he saved the lives of his family in the process. Jacob and the family moved into Egypt to Goshen. Jacob brought Ephraim and Manasseh, the two sons of Joseph, the two older sons of Joseph, into the rank of his children. It's maybe the reference instance of adoption. But as an adoption, he's bringing children out of the rank of his grandchildren into the rank of his children. That's what's happening in this adoption. Okay, they're adopted from being grandchildren to children. So it changed the number of the children of Jacob from 12 children to 13 children. So if we look in the encampment in the wilderness, as I said, there are 12 around the outside, one in the middle, a total of 13. But if we look on the breastplate, there are 12 stones. So it's important to have a Hebraic understanding of that. The answer is not Jacob has 12 children and that's the only answer. The answer is not Jacob has 13 children and that's the only answer. The answer is it's both. He has 12 children in one view, he has 13 children in another view. Both things are true at the same time because the same Bible gives us important data that occurs in the setting of Israel being in the wilderness. At the same time, the priest is wearing 12 stones on his breastplate. He's serving in the tabernacle where Levi is camped around, and around that are the 12 tribes. One setting, one time, both after Jacob brings his grandchildren into the generation of his children. And there, in that one place, in that one setting, there are two very definite answers to the question, how many children does Jacob have? And I'm specifically saying, that is the way Hebraic things work. The answer is not a dichotomy. It is either this or that. That would be incorrect. The answer is, it is this and it is that. And it's that at the same time, in the same place, both in view. Okay? It is not coincidental, I think. So I'm not going to fill in all the blanks yet. That's what I'm getting ready to do. But I do not think that it's coincidental that the United States started with 13 colonies and ended up with 50 states. Okay? The original flag, the United States was always... It had right there in the very first, it had several flags. But once the question of the flag was resolved, it was resolved to stars and bars. And initially, it was 13 bars and 13 stars. But over time, it's changed to 13 bars and 50 stars. And I think that is biblical about Ephraim from front to back, about Israel. I mean, when I'm saying Ephraim, I'm saying Israel. I'm saying both things at the same time, but I'll explain that better as we go along. So let's look now at what Jacob tells Joseph in Genesis chapter 48. And if it's okay, I'm going to speed read a little bit because I actually want to get a few verses in here. Starting with verse 1, and it came to pass after these things that one said to Yosef, see, your father is sick. So he took his two sons with him, Manasseh and Ephraim. And one told Yaakov and said, see, your son Yosef coming in unto you. So Yisrael strengthened himself and sat up on the couch. Then said Yaakov unto Yosef, El Almighty appeared unto me in Luz, in the land of Canaan, and blessed me, and said to me, see me, about to make you fruitful, so I will multiply you and give you to become a multitude of peoples. So I will give this land to thy seed after thee as an age-abiding possession, as an everlasting possession. Now therefore, thy two sons, so now Jacob, he's been rehearsing this, and now he's speaking to Joseph. Now therefore, your two sons who were born to you in the land of Mitzrayim, in the land of Egypt, Mitzrayim is one of the families that was scattered from Noah in the genealogy there. He settled in the lower Nile Valley, and so it came to be known to us in our day as Egypt. The word in Hebrew is Mitzrayim. It's a family name. Born to thee in the land of Mitzrayim, before I came in unto you in Mitzrayim, are mine. Okay. Ephraim and Manasseh, like Reuven and Shimon, shall be mine. So Ephraim, he puts the name Ephraim first, and then he says the name Manasseh, but then he does a peculiar thing. That's peculiar. This is even more peculiar. All right? So then he says, as Reuven and Shimon, they shall be mine. Okay? In other words, if we take that at face value, what he's doing is he's saying Ephraim will have the place of Reuven, Manasseh will have the place of Shimon. All right? Now, Joseph isn't figuring this out yet. All right? And I think it's fair. If people have trouble with what I'm saying, I don't have a problem with it. When Jacob said this, it was evident Joseph was not putting it together. Okay? And so he goes on to say, your offspring which you have begotten after them, they shall be your own. They will be numbered to Joseph. All right? Further on over now. So what Jacob does is he crosses his hands on the heads of the boys. Joseph presents them to him in such a way that Manasseh, the older one, is in front of his right hand, and Ephraim, the younger one, is in front of his left hand. He crosses his hands, and he puts his right hand of blessing upon Ephraim instead of upon Manasseh. So after he says his blessing, then Yosef interrupts his father and says, you've got it wrong. He thinks he can't see or has made some kind of a mistake, perhaps because of his age. He says, in effect, not so. He says, you need to change this a little bit in order to get it right. I'm now in chapter 48 and verse 17. And Yosef saw that his father had laid his right hand on the head of Ephraim, and it was displeasing in his eyes. So he took hold of his father's hand to remove it from off the head of Ephraim onto the head of Manasseh. And Yosef said to his father, not so, my father, for this is the firstborn. Lay thy right hand upon his head. And his father refused and said, I know, Beni, my son, I know, he also shall become a people, he also shall become great, but nevertheless his younger brother shall become greater than he, and his seed shall become a filling up of the nation. And he blessed them on that day, saying, in thee let Yisrael bless himself, saying, Elohim set thee as Ephraim and as Manasseh. So he set, in other words, in that utterance, he definitively set the name Ephraim above the name Manasseh, right? So by what he did and what he said and what he reiterated, he was making a distinct point that Ephraim was to be set in the place of preeminence. Now here's a peculiar thing. He's just told Joseph earlier, before he ever put his hands on the boys, he told him, your sons are going to take the preeminent place in Israel. Okay? Joseph is not his oldest child. Reuven is his oldest child. He's just told Joseph, your sons are going to take the preeminent place in Israel. And then in carrying out that, he has already stated Ephraim is going to be before Manasseh. Joseph's not putting it together. He's probably processing it at a level to say, I get it. My sons are going to take the preeminent place in Israel. Reuven is going to move down. My sons are going to move up. But then, think about this. Then Yosef himself has to adjust to the same problem. Manasseh is his firstborn. He's been raising him as his firstborn. And now, Yaakov is not only moving his sons into the preeminent place in his own family of Israel, he's taking the order in Joseph's family and he's switching it. And that's causing Joseph a problem. At the same time, Joseph is appreciating, here's my suggestion. At the same time, Joseph is appreciating the fact that these boys are being elevated from grandchildren to children. And not only that, they're being put in the prime place in Jacob's family in terms of firstborn status. He's having trouble picking up on the fact that in that process, they themselves are reversed, right? So now he's having to deal with the same thing that other people have had to deal with before him. For instance, Isaac. Esau is the older, Jacob's the younger. Abraham had a child by Hagar, Ishmael, and then a child by Sarah, Yitzhak. Yitzhak is the one who carries the line of the promise, okay? Interesting things happening here. And just because Joseph gets part of it, it doesn't mean he gets all of it. And so if we're dealing with people that are having trouble getting this, it shouldn't surprise anyone. And that's my point here. There may be, I kind of halfway expect this idea that I'm putting forward to be generally rejected. And I'm saying, okay, that's not surprising. I think, you folks may be in a better because you've, been around each other and some of these ideas and me and whatever. But, that doesn't mean that people are going to get this, what I'm talking about, the first time it comes by. All right? But there's some important things here. And so next thing. I want to talk to you about what is said by Jacob about Ephraim and Manasseh, and I want to talk to you about what God says about Ephraim. Okay? So there's a peculiar thing that happens in Scripture. Ephraim becomes the firstborn of Jacob, of Israel, but God also says he takes Ephraim as his firstborn. Okay? Both things happen. Ephraim becomes the firstborn of God. Ephraim becomes the firstborn of Israel. Okay? So, I think now let's go to 1 Chronicles 5. In handling this, coming to the 5th chapter of 1 Chronicles, as we're going through the data that's there, we might have a question, okay, where in all this is Reuben? And the reason we would have this is like, he's the firstborn of Israel, right? If we understand some things about the blessing of Jacob for Ephraim and Manasseh, I kind of am glossing over it. I can go back and fill in if we need to a little bit. But in his blessing of the children that happens in the 49th chapter of Genesis, he makes a particular kind of blessing of Judah, and he makes a particular kind of blessing of Joseph. And in Judah, he puts the scepter and the lawgiver, and in Joseph, he puts the shepherd and the stone. Okay? And both things are significant. And I hope I'll be able to make the case for you that you can see if they remain significant. They're significant from when Jacob says them, they're already significant. They're significant from then until now, and the significance has never been suspended. There's no time in history when it's been unimportant. Okay? The things that go on with Ephraim as a manifestation of the Josephness of Joseph, and that is to say, having the firstborn status in Israel, and Judah having the scepter and the lawgiver associated with Judah. But if we were going through the material of Chronicles, by the time we get to chapter 5, we might be saying to ourselves, seems like there should be something about Reuben here. Well, here it comes. Chapter 5 and verse 1. And the sons of Reuben, the firstborn of Israel, for he was the firstborn, but because he defiled the couch of his father, his birthright was given to the sons, plural, of U.S.A, son of Israel, and he is not to be enrolled in the place of the firstborn. For Yehudah prevailed over his brethren, so that even the prince, the ruler, the prince is from him, although the birthright pertaineth to U.S.A. Then it goes on to talk about the sons of Reuben. What are we learning from this? This is actually reinforcing something that takes place in the blessing. Yaakov himself has a strong confrontational approach in his blessing to Reuben because of his sin. And everything that we're dealing with here is there in that context. Somebody says, how is it that the sons of Joseph get to be the firstborn of Israel? How does that work? And here's the formula. By bringing them up into the rank of his sons, it works like this. Prior to that activity, before he did that, there are 12 sons. At the time of the division of inheritance, it works like this, biblically speaking. The inheritance gets divided into 13 pieces, and Reuben gets 2 pieces, right? And the law itself says the right of the firstborn is the firstborn piece. The right of the firstborn is not to be set aside. The law says that. I believe Jacob, even though the law had not been given at Sinai, I think it was already understood. I think Jacob understood it, and I think he did it, and I think Reuben got his 2 pieces. But understand this with me. By bringing the 2 sons, the 2 older sons of Joseph, Ephraim and Manasseh, up into the rank of his children, understand what happened. He now has 13 children. He divides the inheritance in 14 pieces, and Joseph's 2 sons get 2 pieces. They get 1 piece each, okay? But within Joseph, there's 2. That's the formula. That's how it works, okay? And so Joseph gets a firstborn portion, but he gets it by the bringing of his 2 sons up into the rank of children, okay? Does that make sense? All right. And so it's already there in Genesis 48, 49. It's already, the thing that's being talked about here, it's already there. It's there in what Jacob says and in what he does. Okay? And so the thing that's being talked about here, it already exists. In fact, this is a summary of it. And in this same summary, it says, Yehudah prevails over his brethren, the prince is from him, but the birthright is to Joseph. But it says, the sons of Yosef are given the status of firstborn. That means Ephraim and Manasseh together. That's why I say it's important to understand about the division of the inheritance and the things that pertain to firstborn. In order to understand that data, you have to be able to process that. Okay, that's why I'm bringing that out. Now, so what happens here? Ephraim becomes the firstborn of Israel. The 2 sons of Joseph get the firstborn part, but Yaakov puts Ephraim above Manasseh, so Ephraim is the firstborn of Israel. That's the answer to the question how Ephraim gets to be the firstborn of Jacob, the firstborn of Israel, right?